She's small, noisy, and the Empire says I must obey her orders. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Imperial sector in perfect formation. Long gray ships moved silently through space, disciplined and calm. They had fought pirates, warlords, and collapsing stars. They were used to danger. What they were not used to was embarrassment. Commander Jack Hale stood on the bridge of the lead ship, hands behind his back, eyes forward. He was not a young man anymore. Years of command had taught him patience, control, and when to stay silent. Right now, silence was the only thing keeping his officers from speaking out of turn. The main display flickered as an Imperial transport docked with the human flagship. The ship was small by Imperial standards, almost fragile-looking. Jack had expected an armored cruiser or at least a formal escort. Instead, a single shuttle arrived. The Empire had sent an officer to oversee the joint mission. That much was clear. What was not clear was why the Empire insisted that this officer outranked him. Jack straightened his uniform as the airlock cycled open. He expected something tall. Imperial species were usually large, proud, built to dominate space through presence alone. What walked onto the bridge was none of that. She was small, very small, barely reaching Jack's chest. Her body was slim, her posture sharp, and her uniform looked tailored to exaggerate authority she did not physically possess. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes bright and fast-moving. She spoke before anyone could announce her. "Too slow," she said loudly. "Your docking alignment was 3 degrees off. I corrected it from my shuttle. Do better next time." The bridge went completely silent. Jack blinked once. She marched forward without waiting for permission, boots tapping loudly on the metal floor. Every step sounded like it was meant to be heard. She stopped in front of Jack, tilted her head up and stared straight into his eyes. "I am Officer Lyra," she said. "By decree of the Empire, you will follow my orders without delay or complaint. If you fail, responsibility will be yours." Jack felt the eyes of his crew burning into him. Some were confused, some were angry, a few looked like they were trying not to laugh. He gave a short nod. "Welcome aboard," Jack said calmly. "We will cooperate fully." Lyra narrowed her eyes as if disappointed he had not argued. "Good," she said. "Then listen closely. Your patrol routes are inefficient, your formations are predictable, and your command protocols are outdated. We will begin corrections immediately." She turned and walked past him toward the tactical display. Jack followed slowly. Every instinct told him this was a mistake. Humans had earned respect in battle. They adapted faster than any known species. And now he was expected to take orders from someone who looked like she belonged in a training academy. Lyra began issuing commands at once. "Shift patrol grid to sector Red 7. Increase sensor noise. I want false readings layered over real scans. Rotate crews every 6 hours instead of 8. One of Jack's officers glanced at him, confused. "Commander," the officer asked carefully. Jack held up a hand. "Do it," he said. The orders spread through the ship. Across the fleet, confusion followed. Engineers questioned the sensor changes. Pilots disliked the altered formations. Veterans muttered quietly. Lyra did not stop talking. She criticized everything. She spoke fast, loud, and often interrupted others mid-sentence. During briefings, she paced back and forth, tapping screens, snapping out corrections. Jack watched closely. At first, it seemed chaotic, but then something odd happened. A scout ship reported unusual energy traces near their old patrol route. Pirates, well hidden, waiting. The new route avoided them entirely. Hours later, long-range scans picked up a faint signal burst from deep space. Lyra adjusted the fleet's noise levels without explanation. The signal vanished. Jack did not say anything, but he began to pay attention. The crew slowly realized something was different. Lyra never explained her reasoning, but her timing was perfect. Every annoying change prevented a problem before it appeared. Still, she was hard to deal with. During one planning session, a senior tactician politely suggested an alternative approach. Lyra turned on him instantly. "Wrong," she snapped. "Your math assumes the enemy thinks like you. They do not. Try again." The tactician flushed but stayed quiet. Jack spoke up. "With respect, my officer has experience with this region." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. "Experience is not foresight," she said. "Follow the order." Jack nodded. The meeting continued, tense but controlled. Later that day, Jack stood alone in the observation deck, watching stars drift by. He felt uneasy. He did not like being ordered around, especially by someone who treated his crew like children, yet the results were undeniable. Lyra joined him without announcement. "You disapprove," she said. Jack did not turn. "I question," he replied. "That's my job." She crossed her arms. "You think size equals authority," she said. "Most do." "I think competence does," Jack answered. She smiled faintly. "Good." That was all she said before leaving. The next day the test came. An Allied Imperial station sent out a distress signal. The message was brief and distorted. Enemy ships had appeared without warning. Communication was failing. Jack ordered the fleet to prepare for combat. Lyra was already issuing commands. "Do not charge," she said. "Hold position, scatter formations, let them see confusion." Jack frowned. "They are attacking an Allied station." "They expect rescue ships to behave predictably," Lyra said. "We will disappoint them." The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace moments later. Sleek, aggressive vessels moved to intercept what they believed was a disorganized human response. It was a trap. The human ships scattered, but not randomly. They moved in patterns that looked broken but were tightly coordinated. Enemy targeting systems struggled to lock on. Lyra's voice cut through the bridge noise. "Now," she said. Human ships surged forward, not as a wall, but as individual hunters. They struck from unexpected angles, using terrain, debris, and even sensor noise as cover. Jack's crew moved with instinct and skill. They adjusted on the fly, improving Lyra's broad commands with human creativity. The enemy formation collapsed. Within minutes, the threat was gone. The station was safe. Silence filled the bridge. Jack turned to Lyra. "Well executed," he said. She looked almost surprised. "You followed the orders," she replied. "We improved them," Jack corrected. A long pause, then she nodded once. "Acceptable," she said. As reports came in, Jack understood something important. The Empire had not sent Lyra to command humans because they were weak. They sent her because humans were dangerous. This mission was not about obedience. It was about watching what humans would do when placed under pressure by authority they did not respect. Lyra looked at the stars, her loud confidence fading just a little. "Rest while you can," she said. "The Empire will be watching closely now." Jack knew she was right. And for the first time, he realized that the small, noisy officer was not the problem. She was the warning. "If you want, I can continue part 2 in the same style, same pacing, and same simple English." The fleet did not celebrate the victory. Human crews were used to cheering after danger passed, but this time the mood stayed tight and careful. The bridge felt quieter than usual, as if the ships themselves were listening. Jack Hale noticed it immediately. Officers spoke softly. Reports were precise and short. No one wanted to give the small Imperial officer a reason to comment. Lyra stood near the tactical display, hands behind her back, eyes scanning data streams faster than most humans could read them. She did not praise the crew. She did not criticize them either. That alone made people uneasy. Jack watched her from his command chair. He had led fleets for years, but this situation was new. He was not in full control, yet he was not powerless. It was an uncomfortable balance. After the battle, Imperial Command sent a short message. "Mission continues. Observe, do not interfere." Jack read the message twice. "So they're watching," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "They always are." The next phase began immediately. Lyra ordered longer patrols, deeper into contested space. Areas the humans had avoided before due to unclear intelligence were now marked as mandatory routes. The crew questioned it privately, but Jack enforced the orders. "Trust the process," he told them, "or at least learn from it." The first patrol passed without incident. The second uncovered abandoned listening posts hidden inside asteroid shadows. Old enemy tech, still warm. Jack reviewed the scans with his officers. "These weren't here last year," one of them said. Lyra overheard and turned sharply. "They were," she said. "You just were not meant to find them yet." That sentence stayed with Jack. Over the following days, a pattern emerged. Lyra's orders always placed the fleet where something almost happened, near ambush points just before enemies arrived. Along supply routes just before they were used. Every time the humans arrived early quietly and left nothing behind. It felt less like patrol and more like chess. Jack began to suspect the truth. This was not a joint defense mission. It was a stress test. The Empire wanted to know how humans behaved when placed under command they did not like, by someone they did not respect at first glance. Would they resist, obey blindly, or adapt? One evening, Jack found Lyra in the navigation chamber alone. She stood before a star map, fingers moving across glowing paths. You're mapping future battles, Jack said. She did not look at him. I am mapping behavior. Whose? Yours. Jack leaned against the wall. And what are you seeing? She paused. Curiosity, she said. Discomfort, creativity. She finally turned to face him. You are not afraid of authority, she continued. You are afraid of wasted potential. Jack smiled slightly. You sound like you've studied humans. I have studied failures, she replied. Some were human. Most were not. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert. Unknown signal, multiple sources. Long range, Jack moved to the bridge instantly. The fleet followed protocol, but this time Lyra did not give immediate orders. She watched. She waited, Jack noticed. Something wrong? He asked. No, she said. Something important. The signal resolved into a fragmented transmission. A civilian convoy, mixed species, under threat but not yet attacked. Jack turned to Lyra. We should move to assist. She tilted her head. Why? They're in danger. They are not part of your mission. They're still lives, Jack said. The bridge grew tense. Lyra studied him carefully. If you divert, you expose your fleet. Jack did not hesitate. We'll manage. She was silent for a long moment, then she nodded. Proceed, she said. I will observe. The fleet changed course. Human ships moved with practiced efficiency. Scouts went ahead, signals were sent. Defensive screens were prepared. When the threat finally appeared, it was smaller than expected. Raiders, poorly organized. They fled as soon as they realized who was approaching. The convoy was safe. Cheers broke out across human ships. Lyra watched it all with unreadable eyes. Back on the bridge, Jack waited for her judgment. You disobeyed mission priority, she said. I did, Jack replied. And I'd do it again. Silence stretched. Then she said something unexpected. Good. Jack raised an eyebrow. Empires fall when commanders forget why they fight, Lyra continued. You did not. From that moment on, her behavior changed slightly. She still spoke loudly. She still interrupted, but she began giving broader orders instead of exact ones. Instead of telling ships where to go, she told them what outcome she wanted. Humans thrived under that. They began improving response times, anticipating threats. Creating solutions she had not predicted. Lyra noticed everything. One night, as the fleet drifted in low-activity mode, an Imperial observer ship arrived unannounced. Larger than any human vessel. Silent and imposing, Imperial auditors boarded. Jack felt the shift immediately. These were not soldiers. These were evaluators. They watched drills. They questioned officers. They monitored Lyra closely. During one session, an auditor asked Jack directly, Do you find the Imperial officer adequate? Jack answered carefully. I find her effective. The auditor turned to Lyra. And the humans? They are inefficient, Lyra said. Then she paused. And dangerous. The auditor smiled. Later that day, Lyra confronted Jack privately. They wanted me to restrain you, she said. Did you? Jack asked. No. Why not? Because you are better unrestrained. The next mission confirmed it. A simulated engagement turned real when enemy ships ignored Imperial boundaries and struck fast. Confusion spread. Communications jammed. This time, Lyra gave only one order. Survive. That was it. Human ships reacted instantly. Without waiting for details, they adapted. They protected each other, covered weaknesses, exploited openings. They did not panic. They did not freeze. They survived. When it was over, the auditors said nothing. They simply left. As the observer ship vanished into hyperspace, Jack felt a weight lift and another settle in its place. What happens now? He asked. Lyra looked tired for the first time. Now, she said, the Empire decides whether humans are assets or equals. Jack stared at the stars ahead. And what do you think? She answered quietly. I think the Empire is about to be very uncomfortable. The fleet moved on, deeper into unknown space with no celebrations and no speeches, only purpose, and the growing understanding that this mission was no longer just a test. It was the beginning of something that could change the balance of the galaxy. If you want, I can continue Part 3 with higher tension, deeper Imperial pressure, and a major turning point. The deeper the fleet traveled, the quieter the galaxy became. Stars were fewer here. Trade lanes faded. Even long-range signals thinned until space felt empty and watchful. Jack Hale stood on the bridge, studying the forward display. He had learned to trust his instincts, and right now they told him this part of space did not like visitors. Lyra stood beside the tactical console, unusually still. She was not pacing. She was not interrupting anyone. That worried Jack more than her noise ever had. Report, she said at last. Nothing, the sensor officer replied. No ships, no stations, no active signals. Lyra nodded once. That is the problem. Jack glanced at her. You expected activity. I expected silence with intention, she said. This silence is waiting. The words settled over the bridge like a thin layer of ice. Imperial Command sent another message shortly after. Short. Cold, proceed, no deviation, results required. Jack read it, then handed the display to Lyra. They're pushing, he said. They always do when the answer frightens them, Lyra replied. The next orders she gave were different from before. She did not tell the fleet where to go. She told them what not to do. Do not cluster, she said. Do not chase, do not assume this space is empty just because it is quiet. Human crews adjusted immediately. Ships spread out but remained connected. Scouts moved in overlapping patterns. Communication stayed minimal but precise. Hours passed. Then a ship vanished. No explosion, no distress call. One moment it was there, the next it was gone from every sensor. The bridge froze. Confirm loss, Jack said calmly. Confirmed, the sensor officer replied, voice tight. No debris, no energy spike. Jack felt his jaw tight. Cause, unknown. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Bring the fleet to partial halt, she said. Maintain distance. Jack nodded and relayed the order. A rescue mission would have been instinct. A charge forward would have been human nature. But this time, Jack waited. Minutes passed. Then the missing ship reappeared. It drifted back into sensor range, systems intact, crew alive but shaken. Jack leaned forward. Open channel. The ship's captain appeared on screen, pale and confused. We lost time, the captain said. Minutes maybe or more. We saw something move through us, not an attack, a scan like we were being measured. Lyra's eyes sharpened. Did they speak? She asked. No, the captain replied, but I think they noticed us. The channel closed. Jack turned to Lyra. Unknown species, she nodded slowly. Very old, very careful. Imperial records, restricted, she said, for a reason. Before Jack could ask more, space shifted, not violently. Not dramatically. It folded. Large shapes emerged, not from hyperspace, but as if they had always been there and simply chose to be seen. Their ships were smooth, colorless, and wrong in ways sensors struggled to describe. They did not form a battle line. They formed a wall. A signal arrived, clean, direct. This region is closed, the voice said, neither male nor female, calm, certain. You are not authorized. Jack took a breath. This is a joint Imperial human fleet operating under lawful exploration authority. There was a pause. Authority is a concept, the voice replied. Capability is proof. Lyra stepped forward. We do not seek conflict. Conflict is irrelevant, the voice said. Your presence disrupts balance. Jack exchanged a glance with his officers. This was not an enemy that wanted to fight. This was something that decided. Then tell us the balance, Jack said, so we can respect it. Another pause, longer this time. You are unpredictable, the voice said. That is the concern. Lyra's hands clenched behind her back. You have observed us, she said. Yes. And you have not removed us. No. Why? Because you are still choosing, the voice answered. Many species stop choosing when authority speaks. Jack felt something shift. You've been watching how we respond to orders. Yes, the wall of ships remained still. You obey, the voice continued, but you question, you adapt, you protect those outside your directive. That creates variables. Jack said nothing. Variables can become instability, the voice said. Or correction. Lyra spoke carefully. And who decides which? There was no immediate answer. Then Imperial Command broke in. New directive, withdraw immediately. This region is not worth escalation. Jack stared at the message, so did Lyra. They're afraid, Jack said quietly. They always are when control fails, Lyra replied. The unknown voice returned. The Empire fears what it cannot command, it said. Humans fear what they cannot understand. Jack straightened. We fear losing who we are. Silence followed. The wall of ships shifted slightly, opening a narrow passage. You may leave, the voice said, but understand this. You have been marked as a turning point. Marked how? Jack asked. As a question, the voice replied. The signal ended. The ships faded, not leaving, but becoming unseen. The fleet remained frozen. Jack exhaled slowly. Set course away from the region. The ships moved. As they traveled back toward known space, tension replaced relief. Imperial Command sent no further messages. That silence was heavier than any order. Hours later, Lyra called Jack to a private channel. They will blame you, she said. Jack nodded. For what? For proving obedience is not the same as loyalty, she replied. And you, she looked at him steadily. I was sent to control you. And now I am implicated. Jack smiled faintly. Welcome to the problem. She surprised him by returning the smile. When the fleet re-entered Imperial space, they were met by escorts. Not protective, containing, docking was mandatory, debriefing was immediate. Imperial officials appeared on screens across the flagship. Their forms were tall, imposing, perfect symbols of order. You exceeded your mandate, one of them said. Jack stood straight. We encountered an unknown power. That was not your concern, another replied. Lyra stepped forward. It is always our concern when the galaxy changes. An official turned toward her. You were assigned to enforce compliance. I enforced outcome, Lyra said. Survival, stability, observation. You allowed deviation. I allowed intelligence, she answered. The officials conferred silently. Finally, one spoke. Humans are effective but volatile. Jack met their gaze. So is progress. The room went quiet. This alliance requires hierarchy, the official said. Clear command. Lyra responded before Jack could. Hierarchy failed the moment humans succeeded without permission. That was the moment Jack realized the truth. This was no longer about a mission. It was about whether the Empire could exist in a galaxy where control was not absolute. The officials ended the call without resolution. Later, alone on the observation deck, Jack looked out at the stars again. The same view as before, entirely different meaning. Lyra joined him, smaller than ever against the vastness beyond the glass. They will decide soon, she said, to bind you tighter or to step back. And if they choose wrong, Jack asked. She did not answer immediately. Then others will notice, she said. The ones behind the wall, the ones who asked the question. Jack nodded slowly. Humanity had not fired the strongest weapon. They had done something far more dangerous. They had shown they could not be easily placed inside someone else's design, and the galaxy had noticed. If you want, I can continue part 4, where pressure turns into open confrontation and the Empire makes its most dangerous move yet. Imperial space felt different after their return. The stars were the same, the lanes familiar, but the silence had weight now. Human ships moved under escort, not as honored allies, but as assets under review. Jack Hale could feel it in every delayed response, every formal transmission, every moment where trust used to be automatic. The fleet was ordered to hold position near a massive Imperial relay station. No reason was given, no timeline offered. Waiting was the Empire's favorite tool. Jack stood on the bridge, posture relaxed, mind alert. His officers carried on with routine tasks, but their eyes kept drifting toward the Imperial ships surrounding them. Lyra stood near the viewport, unusually quiet again. That silence had become a warning sign. They are preparing a decision, she said without turning. Jack nodded, binding or breaking. Yes. Which do you think they prefer? Lyra's mouth tightened. Control. Before Jack could reply, a priority signal arrived. Imperial seal, mandatory attendance, High Council chamber. Jack straightened his uniform. Looks like we're invited. The chamber was not a physical place. It existed as a shared projection, a space designed to remind everyone who held power. Tall Imperial figures appeared around them, larger than life, arranged in perfect order. Jack and Lyra stood at the center. Human, small alien, together. You have caused instability, one council member said. Jack met the gaze calmly. We encountered reality. You encountered a force you were not meant to, another replied. Lyra stepped forward. With respect, Counselor, reality does not ask permission. A ripple of displeasure passed through the chamber. Your species has always been difficult, a third counselor said, eyes fixed on Jack. Adaptive, resistant, emotion-driven. Jack did not deny it. Those traits are why your borders still stand. The council paused. You disobeyed direct withdrawal orders, the first counselor said. We delayed, Jack replied, to ensure safe exit. You questioned authority. Yes, that is not your role. Jack glanced at Lyra, then back at the council. Then perhaps the role itself needs review. Silence spread across the chamber, thick and dangerous. Lyra spoke next. The Empire sent me to command humans because you feared them, not their weapons, their choices. One counselor leaned forward. And what do you report? I report that humans obey orders, Lyra said, but they do not surrender judgment. That makes them valuable. And uncontrollable, another counselor snapped. Lyra shook her head. Uncontrollable things break, humans bend. Jack felt something shift in the room. Not agreement, consideration. The lead counselor spoke again. We will impose structure, increased oversight, permanent Imperial command presence aboard human fleets. Jack's jaw tightened. That will fail. Failure is preferable to uncertainty, the counselor replied. Before Jack could respond, Lyra raised her voice. Loud, clear. No, she said. The chamber froze. You will not place handlers over humans, she continued. You will not reduce them to tools. That path leads to rebellion, not order. You overstep, a counselor warned. I was sent to observe, Lyra replied, and I have observed enough. She turned to Jack. Tell them. Jack took a breath. He knew this moment mattered. Humans will cooperate, he said evenly. We will defend shared space. We will respect law, but we will not function under constant restraint. If you try, you will lose our best qualities. And if we insist, the counselor asked. Jack met the gaze without flinching. Then you will still have our ships. But not our trust. The word trust hung in the air. The council ended the session abruptly. The projection faded. Back aboard the flagship, the tension snapped into something sharper. Imperial ships repositioned, not hostile, not friendly, defensive. Lyra exhaled slowly. That went worse than expected. Jack gave a short laugh. You expected it to go well? She glanced at him. I expected delay, not acceleration. An alert sounded. Multiple incoming signals, not Imperial, unknown signatures, familiar patterns. Jack's eyes widened. From the region beyond the wall, Lyra's head snapped up. They are early. The signals did not carry threats. They carried data, observations, records of human behavior, fleet movement, decisions made under pressure. They are sharing what they saw, Jack said. Yes, Lyra replied, with others. Imperial Command reacted instantly, fleet-wide directive. Human vessels are to power down external communication arrays. Immediate compliance required. Jack looked at Lyra. She shook her head. Too late. The unknown voice returned not to the fleet but to Imperial space itself. You attempt containment, it said calmly. That response confirms our concern. Imperial defenses activated across the region, not attacking but asserting dominance. The voice continued. We do not seek conflict, we seek understanding of emerging variables. Jack stepped forward to the main channel. Then talk to us. There was a pause. You are not the authority here, the voice replied. Jack answered without hesitation. Authority is changing. The Empire did not like that. Imperial ships moved into tighter formation. Control signals targeted human systems, attempting to override command pathways. Alarms sounded across the fleet. Jack's officers reacted instantly, isolating systems, rerouting controls, protecting core functions without firing a shot. Human adaptability in action. Lyra watched it all with fierce focus. They are proving my report, she said softly. Imperial Command issued a final order. Human fleets will submit to integration protocols or be considered unstable elements. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, then he opened them. Human fleet, he said calmly, voice carrying across channels. Maintain defensive posture. Do not engage. Do not submit. Protect each other. The unknown presence observed silently. Imperial control signals failed to take hold. Human systems bent, shifted, found paths around restrictions. No violence, no rebellion, just refusal. The Empire hesitated. That hesitation was everything. The unknown voice spoke again. Decision point confirmed. What does that mean? Jack asked. It means the galaxy is wider than empires, the voice replied, and narrower than chaos. Imperial Command pulled back their ships slightly, not retreat, reassessment. Lyra turned to Jack. They are losing the moment. Jack nodded. Moments matter. Hours passed in uneasy stillness. Finally, a new message arrived, not an order, a proposal, joint governance review, human strategic autonomy recognized under conditional alliance status. Jack read it twice. They're backing down, he said quietly. Lyra closed her eyes. Relief flickered across her face, quickly hidden. They are choosing survival over pride. The unknown presence faded, leaving behind only one final message. We will watch, it said. Because you choose. When silence returned, it felt earned. Jack leaned back in his chair, exhaustion settling in. Lyra sat across from him, suddenly looking very small again. You risked everything, Jack said. She shrugged. So did you. He smiled faintly. Guess that makes us a pattern. She returned the smile, tired but genuine. Outside the viewport, Imperial and human ships slowly adjusted positions, not stacked, not separated. Aligned, the Empire had not fallen, but it had bent. And in that bend, something new had begun. The agreement did not feel like victory at first. It arrived quietly, wrapped in careful language and layered conditions. Imperial channels delivered it without ceremony. No banners, no speeches. Just a revised status file that changed everything. Human fleets were no longer listed as subordinate auxiliaries. They were listed as autonomous allies. Jack Hale read the document alone in his command cabin. He read it slowly, once as a commander, once as a human. When he finished, he leaned back and let out a long breath he had been holding for far too long. Outside his viewport, human and Imperial ships shared the same space without overlapping control signals. No one was pushing. No one was pulling. Balance. Lyra arrived a few minutes later. She did not knock. She never did. "They approved it," she said. "They accepted it," Jack replied. "Approval implies confidence." She smiled faintly. "You learn quickly." She sat across from him, legs barely reaching the floor. For the first time since he had met her, she did not look sharp or loud or dangerous. She looked tired. "The council fractured," she said. "Not openly, not yet, but they saw it." "Saw what?" Jack asked. "That authority cannot grow forever," she replied. "Only trust can." Jack nodded. Humans learned that the hard way. They sat in silence for a moment. Then the alert came, not an alarm, not a warning, a greeting. The unknown presence returned, not as a wall or a voice pressing down on reality, but as a shared data space that unfolded gently across the fleet systems. Jack felt it more than heard it, a sense of attention without threat. "You remain," the presence said. "We chose to," Jack replied. "That choice is noted," it said, "across many observers." Lyra straightened slightly. "You contacted the Empire directly." "Yes, and they listened," the presence replied, "because you did not break when constrained. You adapted without collapsing the system." Jack frowned slightly. "That doesn't sound like a compliment." "It is the highest one we give," the presence answered. Data flowed through the channel. Historical patterns, collapsed alliances. Species that obeyed until they could not, then shattered everything around them. "You did neither," the presence said. "You bent without losing form." Lyra let out a quiet breath. "So what happens now?" The presence paused. "Now," it said, "you are no longer an experiment." Jack felt a chill. "Then what are we?" "A reference," the presence replied. The data stream faded, leaving behind a single marker embedded in deep space. A signal not meant to summon, but to remind. Jack leaned back in his chair. "I think we just became a footnote in galactic theory." Lyra shook her head. "No, footnotes are ignored." Days passed, then weeks. The galaxy adjusted. Imperial doctrine quietly changed. Human commanders were invited into planning councils, not as voices to be managed, but as variables to be considered. Some Imperial officers resisted. Others adapted. A few retired early. Human crews noticed the difference immediately. Orders became requests. Briefings became discussions. Mistakes were corrected instead of punished. Jack watched his people thrive in the space between structure and freedom. They took responsibility seriously when it was actually theirs. Lyra remained with the fleet, though her role shifted. She was no longer an overseer, she became a bridge. One evening, as the fleet cruised through a peaceful corridor, Jack found her standing alone near the observation deck. "You could have gone home," he said. She nodded. "I was offered promotion, increased authority. And I declined." Jack raised an eyebrow. "That surprises me." She glanced up at him. It surprised them too. "Why stay?" She considered the stars. "Because this is where the future feels honest." Jack smiled. "Careful, you're starting to sound human." She made a soft sound that might have been laughter. The final confirmation came months later. A new alliance charter was signed, not in an imperial chamber, but in shared space. Representatives from multiple species attended, including observers who did not announce themselves but watched closely. Jack stood beside Lyra as the document finalized. No one towered over anyone else. No one shouted. No one demanded obedience. The Empire did not fall. It learned. As the ceremony ended, a young human officer approached Jack, eyes bright. "Commander," the officer said, "permission to speak freely?" Jack nodded. "Always." "Is it true," the officer asked, "that the Empire tried to control us?" Jack glanced at Lyra, then back at the officer. "Yes. And we said no?" "We said we would cooperate," Jack corrected. "Not disappear," the officer smiled. "Feels good." "It should," Jack replied, "but remember this feeling, it comes with responsibility." The officer nodded and walked away. Later, as the fleet prepared to disperse to new assignments, Jack stood on the bridge one last time with Lyra at his side. "Different missions now," Jack said. "Yes," Lyra replied. "Same risk." Jack looked at her. "Do you regret it?" She shook her head. No, I regret how long it took us to understand. The fleet began to move, ships peeling away not as fragments but as confident parts of a larger whole. Jack felt something settle in his chest. Humanity had not won by force. They had not shouted louder or built bigger weapons. They had done something far more dangerous. They had insisted on being treated as thinking partners in a universe that preferred obedience. And they had proven that choice, when protected, made everyone stronger. As the last Imperial ship departed, Lyra turned to Jack. There is one thing the Council finally agreed on, she said. What's that? She smiled, small and certain. Never tell humans exactly what they must be, she said. Only what needs to be done. Jack laughed softly. Welcome to the club. The stars ahead were wide open, not conquered, chosen, and somewhere beyond known space, unseen observers adjusted their models, adding a new constant to their equations. Humanity did not break systems. Humanity changed them by refusing to stop thinking.